Welcome to the friendliest campus in the South.
Shotgun Blanchard, one back set, rolls right, pressure coming, throws, Middleton got it! He scored!
To the gym of the hills.
He lifts it to left. That one's pretty well hit. Hall on the run. That ball is gone.
Home of the Jacksonville State Gamecocks.
Over the day, over the Hawks. He fires up at the buzzer and drains the three. Good defense by Cunningham. Gregory releases away. Pulls up. He checks.
This is your podcast for JSU Sports.
High fly ball, center field. It is back. It's out of here.
With your hosts, Brandon Owens and Cody Hooks. This is Cocky Nation.
What is going on, Cocky Nation? How y'all doing today, this evening? It's evening for us, but we're so glad that you are back with us again for another episode of Cocky Nation. It's your favorite people, Cody and Brandon, giving you all the new Gamecock news. And let's go ahead. Let's get into it. I mean, we got a ton of stuff to talk about, some tragedy as well, which we're going to share our 2 cents on that just a little bit. But if you caught us last weekend, we were talking with an OG member of the Cocky Nation fam. That was Eric Jeter. And he filled us in on a lot of great input as far as basketball and as far as football is concerned. And we were talking about the great things of JSU basketball, the fact that we were, on a hot streak with winning and just how well things were looking for us. And yeah, Brandon, do you want to just...
Every time that we talk something good, it never lasts.
Something
It's a curse. We really should not have talked about it. We should have just mentioned it, left it at that, not elaborated, whatever. We should have just talked about it. Let that be that.
Which it's not entirely tragedy. So as far as last week is, hold on.
I'm currently watching the basketball game now, and
well, I'm talking about last week. So last week we played North Florida. Both men and the women's team played. The women did beat North Florida 66-58, and the men 88-76.
Let's talk the good things first. So let's talk women's basketball and elaborate on that a little bit.
True. So I thought they looked really good. I think that we played very well in that game. Now, obviously, I do have some critiques here and there, but I mean, overall, I think for what they played, I think it looked good. I think they played good. Obviously, it's not the ending here. They beat North Florida. I mean, the guys
they beat North Florida and Jacksonville, and then they lost to Stetson tonight.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, that was a close game too. But I mean, women's basketball in the ASUN is pretty tough.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, the addition of us made the ASUN a lot tougher on the women's basketball side of things.
Yeah. And you got to take into consideration, before this, our biggest contenders in basketball for both men and women were Murray State and Belmont. And so now we've swapped those out for even more competitive programs at these other schools. So I think the Lady Gamecocks are still looking really good. Obviously, it's still a little too early to tell as far as what's going to happen, as far as where they go from this season. But I don't really have a lot of critiques for them.
4, 5, 6. Okay, we're 17-6 right now. I think. I will say this. I think that's our best start in a long time on the women's side of things.
Yeah,
and I mean, as far as the conference tournament goes, I think we lost our shot at hosting semifinals in Jacksonville because Liberty. I don't know if Liberty won tonight or if their game is still going.
Let me check.
Yeah, they won tonight, so they're at 9-1 or 10-1, Score Mobile doesn't like to update immediately. But well, apparently it did for us, so maybe they are 9-1. So if we have to end up playing Liberty in the tournament, well, I take that back. We might still host semifinals because we would be the number 1 seed in the West and they'd be the number 2. And so higher seed hosts.
I will say that if we play Liberty at home, we have a much better chance. But if we don't play Liberty at home, and again, we're talking about women's basketball, if we don't play Liberty at home, and we play them at Liberty, I don't see us pulling through. And
I think they would have to come here because we would have one of the 2 number 1 seeds,
which is good, at the end of the day. And I will say that men and women basketball, if we do host any of the semifinals, like, y'all show up. Like, I know I don't live on campus anymore, but like, we have got to show up on that moment because that's a feat on its own. And I know tons of people used to travel for the OVC tournament, which is good, but if we have an ability to host at home, that's just an opportunity for us to just show up and show out. So,
yeah, I agree.
So their next game for the Lady Gamecocks is going to be technically was tonight. Was their first game after last week, and that was against Stetson, and they did not win against
70 to 66.
Yeah, 70 to 66. It's a close game, but regardless, we did lose. And then on Saturday,
we host Central Arkansas.
Yeah, we host UCA at 1:45. So be on the lookout. Go for that game. Go support the Lady Gamecocks because they need as much support as we do. So
sadly, I will not be there because I work a double on Saturday.
I don't live nearby anymore. It's hard to travel sometimes, but I watch online. So with that being said, let's transition to our men's team. Do you got the stats? Do you
I
want
do.
to show, do you want to show the stats?
Yes, I will. Let me enlarge my screen so I can read that. There we go.
If it's hard for you to read, or maybe you're listening to this on Spotify, Brandon, would you like to share some of these stats with us?
Okay, so field goal percentage, they beat us. They shot 48.3% compared to our 45.3%.
Mm-hmm.
Everything past that minus 3-pointers was either close or we beat them. Now that I'm looking at it, I think Score Mobile had it wrong the night of the game. Because North Florida has beat us in everything.
Mm-hmm.
They beat us in field goal percentage. They beat us in 3-point percentage. They beat us in free throws. They beat us. Rebounds were the same. We beat them in offensive rebounds. They beat us in defensive rebounds. They beat us in assists. They had more steals. We had more blocks. They had 10 turnovers, and we could not turn them into points like we did against Liberty.
See,
what in the actual world?
See, and I'm trying to figure out, because I pulled up the stats on my phone just to make sure. On the Score app, it says that they had 8 turnovers and we had 3. When I'm looking at this, so I'm not entirely sure how correct this is, but regardless,
North Florida was knocking down every 3 that they put up. Obviously not every 3, but every big opportunity 3 that they shot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. They shot 17 for 35 from the field, and we shot 3 for 19.
Now, as far as individual players, as far as their stats go, Adams looked really good. Finch looked really good. Huffman looked really good with 19 points. But I don't want to. I don't want to use the argument that we were Icarus and we flew too close to the sun and then our wings started to melt. Because though you could argue that that's the case, I would say otherwise because of the fact that it's basketball. Okay, I mean, look at it in the perspective that Auburn recently had beat
Sorry, we
Alabama.
just made a 3.
There you go. Alabama had just recently lost to Auburn, right? And like Auburn was like all hyped about it. And then what just happened? Was it last night or today?
Last night, Arkansas beat them.
Arkansas beat Auburn. So this is just the change of the times. This happens with any sport, especially a high intensity sport like basketball. This thing tends to happen. It's just like when you're watching baseball and you have a series that happens with a series of games. One team may sweep the entire series, or one team may win 2 and the other team wins 1, or who knows. So it's just kind of like an up and down thing. I will say that I'm not happy with the numbers per se, but again, I don't have a lot to say because
You will have a lot to say on this next topic because there was a big ordeal with the refs.
Mhm.
It was literally like watching OVC refs in an A-Sun matchup.
Oh, it's not the Patriot League? Throwback to football.
Yeah, that was awful. But with how much we complain about OVC refs being horrible, these A-Sun refs, because we haven't had any issues with the A-Sun refs until last Thursday.
Yeah.
It was so bad. They were calling fouls on us that, number one, we never committed. They weren't calling fouls that North Florida that stat that I just took down said that North Florida had 16 fouls against them. It should have been close to 30.
Yeah. And from what I've gathered, again, I watched online or I watched on TV. From what I've gathered, the people of the game were not happy.
No, you can see me at one point on TV where I'm literally looking up and looking around and being like, "Oh my God, what is happening?"
Yeah. And I don't want to say that, like, maybe it was just bad reffing. Maybe it's because we're leaving the ASUN. I don't know. It's just so much to throw up into the air when it comes to that. So I don't know how to take it. I will say that overall, like, I just wish the game was closer. Like the fact that we lost by 12 points
To the
like,
worst team in the East.
Yeah, they're 7-17, currently 7-17. Like, how? How do we like? I don't know if it's just we were off our A game, or what. I know that um, King and Henry like did not play that much. Like they played a little bit, but like as far as points wise, Henry only had 6 points. King only had 8. I don't know. Like it was just I think we were just off our A game, and it's hard to make a decision based on all that information in regards to all of this because again, like we ended up beating Jacksonville on Saturday, which is good.
They're the number 2 team in the East,
And we beat
and
them.
we just lost to Stetson.
Yeah.
Who is the 5th ranked
we-
team in so here's my thing. Now that we know that we lost to Stetson, how in the world do we go from beating the top 4 teams in the ASUN? And I would even say Kennesaw is not even that good anymore. When we played them, they were, but now they have a 10-13 overall record, and Florida Gulf Coast has a 15-9 overall record. So we've beaten the 3 teams in the East that have winning records, but yet we can't beat the 2 worst teams in the East.
Yeah.
Please explain. Please explain. I don't understand.
Well,
Is
it's
this
just
just
like
a running trend with JSU sports? Like we give it our all with the best teams in the conference and even in the rest of Division 1, and then we play these lesser teams and say, "Oh, we got it in the bag," and we just completely. Do you know what phrase I want to use?
yeah. I don't know, man. It's one of those interesting concepts is the fact that, it I don't want to say that it's a common theme, though. When other FCS Fan Nation individuals watch this, they're probably going to say, yeah, it is," because let's face it, everybody gets a chance to crap on JSU when they can. So some people would say that it's a common theme. I think we just let our guard down. I think we put ourselves in a spot where, we're like, oh, we'll be fine, and then just drop it. Could it be possibly, hey, we're utilizing our best players in those high intensity games versus not our best players in these types of games? Possibly. But I mean, like, again, like looking at Stetson tonight, like Adams played a really good game. From what the stats are showing thus far, but I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to put my finger on it. I just hope that we have this kind of, together before we get to the semis and get to the playoffs for the tournament.
Let's just go ahead and put something out there.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this loss and Liberty won tonight, Liberty is now 10-1 in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
We are now 9-2.
Mm-hmm.
We are no longer in a position to host the championship game.
And more than likely, I hate to say it this way, but it's the God honest truth. More than likely, you're not going to be able to beat the same. I mean, look at Georgia and Alabama. Alabama got the slip up on Georgia in football, and then they went to the national championship. And Georgia was like, we're not just going to accept that anymore. So I'm always going to root for the Gamecocks, but I'm also going to tell you I can be concerned because of the fact that we're going back to Liberty, and Liberty is not just going to be like, oh, here, let me just give you this win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and moving forward into our future, like looking at our future schedule, all of the teams that we have played or that we have left to play are within our division. It'll be the second time that we play all of these teams. And a lot of them were super, super close. Yeah. And that worries me.
And we have to pull out our A game for this, because if we don't, we are going to get swept under the rug for it, which even if they were close games, they were still wins. And we got to remind ourselves about that when we play them. We play UCA on Saturday at 4:00. So that
was a close game at UCA. So I'm hoping the fact that it's here in Jacksonville, that's my nephew.
Oh, sorry, y'all. My cat got a new cat. Cat's
he's so cute. Anyways, back to Jacksonville State basketball. But baseball and softball.
We're gonna talk about that.
Quick plug. Well, we don't have enough to talk about it for a segment, but they are starting very soon.
Well, I do have something I want to talk
this
about,
week.
But we'll get that.
But the fact that we are hosting Central Arkansas and it was a close game at UCA, I think that's going to help us because it's at home. So I'm not necessarily worried, but I am worried about that game.
Right.
But we travel to Bellarmine, and that was a back and forth game here.
Oh, Bellarmine. And yes, I'm pronouncing it right this time.
Yes, and I'm very proud of you.
I know I suck at names, guys. Like if you haven't
Oh,
already noticed
really?
yet.
I would have never guessed.
Whatever. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously after the UCA game this weekend, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But
I forgot about Lipscomb. We actually came back from I think it was like almost a 20-point deficit and beat them in a close game here.
yeah, which is
And we
good,
go to Lipscomb.
which is also going to be hard. Again,
Lipscomb is a lot like Belmont.
yeah, and it's the argument of home field advantage. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. So, I'll wait and see. I'm pulling for I'm pulling for the Gamecocks against UCA. I think we got it. We just got to play smart. That's all I can really say. Do you have anything last that you want to say about basketball?
Will is probably going to chastise me because I commented on one of his Twitter posts,
Oh Lord.
and I'm going back on what I said.
Oh Lord.
I'm actually very worried about the UCA game, and I could see UCA coming into our house and beating us.
Hush.
I didn't say I was picking
Hush.
UCA. I didn't
Hush.
say I was picking UCA.
You spoke into existence. With that being said, y'all, I think the last thing that I just want to kind of talk about, because obviously we don't have a lot to say about our baseball and softball just yet, but I did want to share the news if you had not already heard. Today, JSU lost a good individual, a really good coach, former coach of baseball, Rudy Abbott, and I think it's hitting a lot of people. Rudy Abbott was a really good baseball coach for JSU. The current new field that we have is named after him. It's hard, especially when you lose somebody that was so important to the program itself. Makes it even more difficult because then you're like, well, dang, oh, there's my cat again. So I just want to kind of share some things about it. So I'm going to move him again. So Abbott spent 32 years as head coach for the Gamecocks and became just the 29th coach in the NCAA history to win 1,000 games, winning 1,003 in his tenure. He was named JSU Sports Information Director in 1964 and took over the baseball program in 1970. Abbott led the Gamecocks to 2 NCAA national championships, claiming back-to-back titles in 1990 and 1991. During his tenure at JSU, he was named the NCAA District Coach of the Year 6 times. His team won 5 Gulf South Conference. Ooh, what a time to be in the Gulf South. And 11 Gulf South Conference division titles. Greg Seitz, our athletic director, said this is a sad day for Jacksonville State University and the Calhoun County community who served Abbott's SID from 1994 to his retirement in 2001. So obviously,
Greg Seitz has been. Oh wait, no, he hasn't been AD that long. SID. You said
no,
SID.
SID, yeah. And Rudy Abbott was a huge fan of JSU. He supported this school. He loved JSU in our community. And he even continued. I never got to meet him personally, but I know that he continued to serve long after his career, which, is difficult sometimes in a lot of programs, because coaches come and go, man, and any sport, people come and go all the time, especially winning coaches. And so the fact that he didn't just simply say, oh, well, my time's up, I'm done. He gave a lot of his time to JSU and to make it better. And so, Coach Abbott, we thank you.
Yeah, he coached my uncle. He actually recruited my uncle to come play here, and I don't know if my uncle knows, but my uncle respected and loved that man.
Yeah.
So it's not hitting me hard because I didn't know him personally. I mean,
Right.
the most I knew him was through our interactions on Facebook because I was Facebook friends with him.
Oh, get out of town.
And so one of the things that I loved about Rudy Abbott, he supported the athletics department, but he also supported the Marching Southerners. He was a big supporter of the Marching Southerners. And he's just an all-around great man.
Yeah. And it's a loss, but at the same time, like, I agree with you. I didn't know him personally, just from what I've been told, and some people, like the information that I've had from some people that have shared stories. So I think it's good that, we remember him in the way that he was, and let's make this season for him, I think, is the best way to look at it.
Mhm.
So
It would be a good tribute to his life
yeah.
if our boys ended up playing very well this year.
Oh yeah. So it's just like how the Atlanta Braves won the World Series for our man,
Bobby Cox,
and Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron, oh, that too. But didn't Bobby Cox pass away like recently as well?
I can't remember. I would just remember that everybody says do it for Hank. So
Well, Bobby Cox to me is on the same level as Hank. That guy
oh
was
yeah,
just amazing.
but well, guys, this is a pretty short one. We didn't have a lot to talk about. We'll have more to talk about as we get closer uh, to the tournament and into the semis for basketball, and then obviously as baseball starts to get full swing, we'll start getting a little bit more information on that. But again, we just want to thank you guys for listening. Of course, if you're not following us on all of our social media platforms, what are you doing with your life? Twitter and Instagram is at cocky_nation. And then Facebook is Cocky Nation, a JSU podcast. Go listen to us. And, also reach out to our other FCS Fan Nation podcasts out there. I really highly recommend some of our HBCU podcast brothers and sisters because I've been listening to them and they have a lot of good stuff to bring to light. So that's what I would share.
Yeah, I just pray for me. It's gonna be a long month and a half for me.
It already is for me. But guys, stay safe, stay cocky, and fear the beak.